by P&O upon her luxurious European tour could have been more keenly sensible of the romance of foreign travel than she, crossing Hobson's Bay in a borrowed customs launch, while squally darkness surrounding and isolating her and her mate immeasurably enhanced the charm. "I want to see it, to feel it," she pleaded. "The air is so clean and fresh. The sea is so grand tonight. How beautiful it smells, Guthrie. I must have been born for a sailor's wife. I love it so." "Of course you were," the sailor assented heartily. "No manner of doubt about that. Well, sit here, if you prefer it, sweetheart, on the stern grating. Only mind you don't catch cold, and don't let us get that pretty frock spoiled before the Williamstown folks have seen it." He steadied her while she stood to have the big mackintosh drawn closely about her. The round cape, flapping far and wide in the rough wind, was like an unmanageable sail, he said, and when she was again seated, he tucked it under her knees and feet. Buttons being hard to find and fasten, he pulled the two fronts of the garment one over the other across her lap, and she sat upon the outer one. Then he readjusted the white fascinator, winding the fluffy ends round her neck, and finally encircling all with his stalwart arm. There she sat, resting against him, her left hand in his left hand, her contented eyes shining like stars in the dark. They were practically alone in space, their deck companions having thoughtfully turned their backs and made themselves as remote as possible. A long sigh fluttered through Lily's parted lips from her surcharged heart. Guthrie heard it through all the clamour of the gale, for it really was a gale, and the noise of the screw and fiercely snorting funnel. He stopped his face to hers. "Tired, pet?" "No," she murmured. "Oh, no." "What then?" "Only happy, perfectly happy." "Same here," he said, careless how he tempted fate, only more so. Their lips met, and were holding that sweetest kiss of lovers that are man and wife, when a wave, driven by the wind, flung a shower of spray at them, giving each a playful slap of the face as a hint not to be too confident. "Hadn't you better get inside?" he urged, as he wiped her cheek. "It'll be rougher still directly." "Oh, no, it's splendid. The rougher the better. I'm so glad it's rough. I can't take any harm. So well wrapped up, and with you, my husband." "Ay, Lil." The hug he gave her in acknowledgment of the word made her gasp for breath. He was so carried away that he had to use both arms, whereby a lurch of the boat nearly unseated him. "Never," he declared, in an intense whisper, "never shall you come to harm, my precious one. While you've got me to protect you, I can promise you that." "Dear," she returned, in the same kind of tone, "I know I never shall." And she cuddled closer up to him, and he took a firmer grip of her. There was no rail for either to hold to, and drawing out from the shelter of the pier, and meeting the force of the southerly swell, the launch had begun to dance like a cork on boiling water. "Why, there's quite a sea on," remarked Guthrie, with a laugh. "I hope it won't make you seasick." "Seasick?" she echoed, with fine scorn. "I am a sailor's wife, sir." "Bless your little heart! I've been seasick myself many a time, and for not much more than this, either. However, it'll soon be over. There's home waiting for us, Lil." "Where? Where?" she interrupted him, with a tender eagerness. The launch was tossed high in the air, and the lights of Williamstown stretched across the darkness in front of them like a band of jewels. "Oh, you can't distinguish it," said Guthrie, "but it's there. It's one of those lights. Mrs. Hardacre said she was going to keep the blind up, and the gas flaring, so that we might see it as we came over." "That's what I shall do when you come back next time," said the girl, with a voice like a dove cooing. "Make a beacon to guide you home. No fear that I shall mistake the course, little woman." He had an irresistible impulse to hug her with both arms again, and they happened to be on the verge of the river current. Hardacre and Finlayson both shouted, "Look out, sir!" but he was not looking out. His sailor's eyes were otherwise occupied, and so he did not perceive the enemy of love making the spring to seize him. Just as he was folding his mate to his breast, he heard the warning cry, "Forward!" and it was then too late to avert the catastrophe. In the same instant a sudden wave struck the launch, and nearly turned her over, and the young wife and husband, holding to nothing but one another, and simply sitting upon an unprotected plank, were tipped out as easily as balls from a capsized basket. "Oh, this is too absurd!" That was Guthrie's mental ejaculation in the astonishing first moment. A deep sea sailor, who had come through what he had come through, to let himself be caught unawares by such a paltry mischance as this! Then, what an unspeakable ass to have been so careless, to have shown himself incapable of protecting his wife, after all his boasts! Would he ever hear the last of it as long as he lived? Poor little woman! How cold the water felt when he thought of her tender skin, and her pretty dress that she had set such store by, in which she had intended to go to church with him on Sunday, utterly destroyed, of course. Well, he must make shift to afford her another and smarter one, and get it made quickly. She should have her pick and choice. As the following wave soused his uprising head, slapping him full in the face, so as to confuse and blind him for a second or two, the fear that she might get a dose of it before they could pull her out made him sharply anxious. If she got a bad cold, a shock to her nerves, perhaps a serious illness, he would never forgive himself. And what a sell that would be! What a waste of this precious holiday! This second honeymoon, so much sweeter than the first, after the weary waiting for it. He cleared his eyes and had a momentary view of the surroundings, before another wave rushed upon him. Waves they were, by George! He could not have believed it possible that such a sea would be running right up here, in this little duck pond of a bay. It had seemed rough on the boat, but viewed from the surface it might have been the middle of Atlantic wastes. They were in the river channel, worse luck, and the south wind was dead on to it, bringing up the swell from outside, and the swell that had set that way for days was so heavy as to drive him back faster than his powerful limbs could propel him in the other direction. At first the launch seemed to want to dance over him, but when he rose on a swirl of water to take his bearings after the first bewilderment, she was a couple of lengths away, cutting the most extraordinary capers in her efforts to put about. Her own lights, and those of the beacons at the river mouth, showed him all her stern grating and bright deck fittings as she heeled over, hanging to the side of one of those ridiculous ocean rollers out of bounds.